up, everybody? Welcome to the Thursday sports edition of the Slate. Adam Kaufman. We will have Reed T. Fowler in just a little while. Take a look at what's going on in the links, dive into the world of the NFL. But we will begin, just as we did this time last week, with Puck Talk. NHL playoffs. The Stanley Cup playoffs are going on. And of course, we are still in round one, but it is possible that we could have four of them come to an end tonight, with Pete Jensen, of course, and Anna Dua as well. These two from the NHL fantasy department, if you will, but Pete also is the co-host of the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast. Great to have you both here with us. Pete, you've been on before, but Anna, you've been with us on the Sweat in the mornings. First time on the Slate, as far as I know. How are you guys?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing great. We're excited. I'm hoping for a couple of game sevens, right, Anna? Whether there are 7 series yet to be decided. So the NHL has never had more than 6 game sevens in the first round. So first time for everything, maybe.
Well, looking at it right now, Anna, we've got, like I said, it's possible that all 4 of these series could be extended tonight. Hopefully, odds are that's not going to happen, but it would be nice because we all love game sevens in the playoffs, especially in the NHL playoffs when they go like 3 overtimes or whatever. But Carolina, Toronto, St. Louis, and LA all with a chance to end their series tonight. So if you had to pick, and we'll talk to both of you about this, obviously, but Anna, you can go first here. Which of these do you think we will see a game 7?
I think we're most likely to see a game 7 between the Minnesota Wild, St. Louis Blues, or the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't think the defending champs are going to go down without a fight. They're going to battle hard tonight. I think that's definitely going to game 7. Minnesota, we haven't seen their full potential just yet. They're making some changes in net with Cam Talbot coming in for this game 6. So I see that going to game 7. The 2 games I think that are most likely to wrap up their series tonight have to be either the Hurricanes or the LA Kings.
Well, as a Bruins fan, Anna, I'd hoped we could be friends, but sadly, we're not off on the right foot here. Pete, what do you think?
I do think with that Carolina-Boston series that there's a good chance Boston holds serve and sends it back to Carolina. Whether they can win that game is another story. I have my doubts. They would have to score first in a game like that with Carolina's trends on their side.
Scoring first isn't really Boston's thing, these playoffs.
No, it's true. But I do like that, not only with McAvoy back now, it sounds like probably Hampus Lindholm's going to play too. Mm-hmm. We hope so. That'll kind of like make Boston's back end even more robust. And those guys in the power play on Boston have been rolling in the home games. For some reason, they can't find the consistency, but I like their chances at home. They'll be motivated. This could be, we don't know what's going to happen with Bergeron beyond this year. You would expect that he would be back if he's going to be playing, but he's a UFA after this year. So I think there'll be a spirited crowd and spirited effort. So I think Boston will force game 7. And I have my doubts about Toronto closing this out, just because obviously the Tampa Bay Lightning have not lost consecutive games in any of the past 3 postseasons. So that's a really tough stat to crack, right, for the Leafs.
Well, to your point, Patrice Bergeron, I don't think there's any universe in which he's not a Bruin if, in fact, he decides to play next year. Staying with Boston just in this sense, obviously you guys are here to break down all things daily fantasy looking ahead to this 4-game slate. And I'm looking at some optimal lineup builds right now. And I don't know, people, we were talking about yours last week. I don't know what yours today looks like, or Anna, yours as well. But at the goaltending spot, Jeremy Swayman, I'm not necessarily saying that he is the best goalie played tonight, but in terms of optimal lineups and just factoring in salary and everythting else, he is by a wide margin almost the consensus goaltender in that slot tonight. You've got Antti Raanta just behind him in a fair number. Jordan Binnington, obviously Vasilevsky as well for Tampa Bay, but I'm talking like 4/5 of lineups, at least in projecting out 100 or so right here. It's Jeremy Swayman. Are you as bullish on him tonight, Pete?
I like the matchup for him. I like his chances of getting the win based on the reasons I was saying before. Boston's power play is excellent. They're getting their defense closer to full strength. So I like what that means for Swayman. That said, Anna and I were talking about it before the show. We like that trend in the Tampa's favor to hold true and force game 7. They'll be on home ice. And we also like Jonathan Quick, who's a lot cheaper And with his pedigree in closeout games or potential series clinching games through the years and being a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, I think that the Oilers are in some real trouble, and they don't have Darnell Nurse either. So like, I think Jonathan Quick, the age-old American-born goaltender, arguably the best American-born championship goaltender of all time, has a great opportunity here to, get his career back on track. Hasn't been to the playoffs in a little bit. So I think the Kings close out the Oilers tonight.
Is Quick the direction you would go, Anna, or is there another goalie you like better?
Quick is the direction that I would go. Like Pete said, Quick is great in the playoffs, 920 save percentage across playoff appearances, 923 in series clinching opportunities. I think he has a really favorable matchup coming up against Edmonton. As Pete said, without Darnell Nurse, it's a huge loss. He has the most average time on ice per game for the Oilers, so they're going to be missing a big piece on their blue line. And the LA Kings won 2 back-to-back games. Quick did have that shutout, that 4-0 victory over the Oilers as well. I think the Kings have a chance to close it out tonight, and I think he has to be the best option in the crease.
We don't typically start with the goaltenders, but obviously the conversation took us that way. So Anna, let's stay with you. Let's look at forwards here, in particular the centers. We'll get to the wings. Let's start with the centers here, because in terms of projections, the top 2 plays tonight, not necessarily from a value standpoint, certainly when you look at their salaries, but just, total point performers, it would be Austin Matthews, it would be Connor McDavid. Then you filter down a few points, you go to Leon Draisaitl, his teammate as well. But is it one of these 2 guys in particular that you'd be willing to pay up for, both right in the realm of $9,000, or would you look for more value at that spot?
I think you got to look for more value at that spot. I don't like the Oilers that much against the Kings, given the situation they're currently in. So that kind of knocks McDavid out of the running for me. I think there are some better forwards in the Maple Leafs that might be a better bang for your buck. That's not Austin Matthews. We could get to that later. But for center, I'm going with Los Angeles once again with Philip Deneau. I think he's a great option. He's been doing great. He's tied for the most points on the Kings right now with 5. I think that's a great value pick there. And then if you don't want to go Deneau, what about Ryan Hartman out of Minnesota? He's playing with Kirill Kaprizov. Kaprizov is having an awesome postseason. Hartman's coming off of the best season of his career. He has 5 assists in 5 games. You have to figure he's going to find the back of the net eventually. Maybe game 6 is the time.
See, Pete, when Anna said LA at center, I thought she was going to say Anze Kopitar, because he projects to be the top owned player tonight across the entire slate, almost 30% of lineups, at least as things stand right now. And obviously, in terms of value, projected to be in a really good spot, $5,000, right around 15 points.
Yeah, he's got a great shot volume in this series against the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers can run and gun and score in droves, but the Kings are kind of a more polished actual team. From top to bottom, they've been a top 10 or top 5 possession team in terms of shot attempts percentage pretty much all regular season. They were in that realm. And I have Kopitar in my lineup, $5,000, my mock lineup. And I just love the way that he's playing with Adrian Kempe. Kempe, of course, had a breakout performance in the playoffs last time out, game 5 on the road, silencing the crowd on the road. So I was really impressed by that. Kopitar, he's the leader of this team in the skater group with Drew Doughty, his teammate and fellow 2-time champion, injured and not playing in the whole series. Also, Victor Arvidsson's injured. So I think if the Kings are going to close out the Oilers tonight at home, Kopitar and Deneau will be a big part of it with their 2-way prowess, not only containing McDavid and Draisaitl, their 1-2 punch, but also scoring a little bit, both of them.
Just to filter through, because obviously, Anna, you have the 2 center spots in your lineup. How important is it to you to not just have centers that have power play exposure in general, but in particular top line power play guys?
It's super important. And when you look at who they're playing with, it can be a make or break. Like I mentioned, like playing with elite players on both of these teams. You have Kirill Kaprizov. So once you throw him into the mix, you expect the point production for anyone who plays with him at any point to increase as well. So I think it really matters. Right now, we're getting into the point where the power play really matters. It's going to be a huge factor in changing the way the game plays. So whoever's on that top line power play, whoever's on that top line during just 5-on-5 5 hockey, you're going to see their point production increase just based off of who they're playing with.
So Pete, as we shift over to wing here, is this a pay up spot for you? Is it more the wing? Is it more defense? What's the strategy in terms of your build?
In my mock lineup, I spent up for 2 stud wings. I have Kaprizov. Whether or not you stack him with Hartman, that's up to you. I like that strategy, but I have spent up for Kaprizov at St. Louis after his big game, and he's tied for the NHL lead in goals this postseason with 7. He's tied with Jake Gensel of the Penguins. And I also have Brad Marchand because his home production this postseason has been outstanding. He's got 8 points in the 2 games. He had a 5-point game in game 4, and he had a 3-point game in game 3. So, you can't say that he owns the Canes across the board, but certainly when they're playing at TD Garden, it's a good investment more times than not. So yeah, I'm kind of like building my whole lineup around those 2 and Vasilevsky, who's a spend up goalie option, but I think he probably puts forth his best effort of the whole series, considering Vasi has allowed 3+ goals in all 5 games to this point. Facing elimination is a different story. So again, I trust Vasi, I trust Kaprizov, win or lose, and then I have a good feeling about the Boston Bruins, so I'll spend up for Marchand.
And there are certainly some, value cheaper wingers, certainly not cheap, but cheaper wingers than a Marchand type or a, Pasternak as well, or even a Mitch Marner or Kaprizov, guys like that. You can go down to, like Pete mentioned, Kempe before for LA. There's David Piranha's in a good spot for St. Louis. Matt Zuccarello for Minnesota as well. Is this a pay up spot for you also, or do you like some of these guys that are more mid-range?
I think we got to talk about William Nylander out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he has to be one of the best values for what he's listed at 5,100 right now. Out of all of the skater options for tonight's slate, he's probably the most impactful Leaf these past 2 games. He has 5 points, 3 goals, 2 assists, really helped turn the tide of this team. He helped set up the first goal in the last game for Toronto. He had a goal himself, really helped the Leafs secure that win and take a series lead. He's just been all over the ice, phenomenal, creating opportunities. So I think William Nylander would have to be one of the best wing options to have in this game against Tampa if the Leafs are finally looking to make it out of the first round. However, I am going to give your Bruins some love. If you do want to spend up, what about David Pastrnak? Pastrnak quietly actually leads all postseason skaters with shots on net. He has 30. So you got to expect that point production to come big and come all at once, since he hasn't been having much luck through the first 5 games of that series. So either I'm going for value and choosing a great solid option in Nylander, or I'm spending up for Pastrnak, who's bound to have a huge night tonight.
Let's talk defense then, Pete. We'll start with you here. It's interesting, in terms of the price point. Victor Hedman is at the top by a wide margin in terms of point projection, right around 15 points. Next most, Charlie McAvoy, second game back from COVID for him, right around 11 or 12. But again, salary, $7,100 for Hedman, and McAvoy he's not the next at 4,800. You've got Tony DeAngelo's had a great stretch lately. He's 5,500, but still there's a wide gap there between Hedman and everybody else. Do you feel like you need to have him?
I mean, it's worthwhile if you have the room to spend up for him, but I would go a different route. I would go in that same Boston game, Jacob Slavin. I mean, if you have Jeremy Swayman, maybe you don't go heavy on the Canes, but I would invest in Jacob Slavin. 8 points in 8 games against the Boston Bruins this season, regular season and playoffs combined. Postseason at large, he's got 11 points in his past 13 playoff games, which is impressive. This is a guy that chugs along in the regular season. He's a workhorse for Carolina every single night. But then when the games matter more, he chips in more offensively and he starts to hit his stride and his ceiling in the postseason. So I'm really big on Slavin. I like McAvoy, but with the addition of Hampus Lindholm, if he is playing, and another defenseman to keep an eye on is Evan Bouchard, with Darnell Nurse suspended for the 1 game. Even if you're not going heavy on McDavid and Draisaitl, try to tap into the bank a little bit just in case those guys go off and force a game 7. Bouchard is one of the best at even strength points in the NHL this year among defensemen.
Anna, who's the standout on the blue line for you?
I gave a lot of value picks for center, for wing, so I think I'm going to have to spend up on my blue line. It's hard to argue against Victor Hedman with Tampa facing elimination. He's always been a huge playoff performer for the team. He leads the Lightning in points right now with 7, 2 goals, 5 assists. He had 8 shots in game 5, didn't get to see the back of the net as much as he would have hoped, but if he keeps producing like that, you've got to expect that he's going to really find his name on the scoreboard once, if not more times. If not him, I'm actually going to go with Jacob Slavin's partner on Carolina and Tony DeAngelo. He's been a huge presence, 6 most points in the postseason with 8 so far out of all the skaters, second most defensive points right behind Victor Hedman. So Tony DeAngelo has been a huge force for the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have played some dominant games against the Bruins. If they show up the way they have at home this time in TD Garden, you have to expect that DeAngelo is going to be a huge part of that performance.
Taking a look at the DraftKings sports book right now, it's every game is pretty much the same. Obviously, you have the goal line is 1.5 for the favorite, and the over under in terms of total goals, it's 6.5 for every single game. If you had to identify one game, Anna, that you think is going to produce a lot of scoring, a game that you might, from a fantasy perspective, want to stack, obviously in your DFS lineups, which is it?
I think I'm going to have to go the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think both of those teams have some high-powered offensive players. Some of them haven't performed as well as they would have liked to. I think the opportunity is right there. They're both going to be fighting for it. Toronto finally trying to make it past the first round, finally trying to win a series for the first time in 18 years. And Tampa's not ready to let go of their back-to-back championships just yet. I think it's going to be all guns a-blazing, and I think that could be one of the higher scoring games. If not them, Minnesota, St. Louis is my second one.
What about you, Pete?
I'll go with Minnesota, St. Louis, just because I'm drafting Vasilevsky. Maybe he'll keep this thing lower scoring and shut down the Leafs like he's done in the past. But again, I think that like the Wild and the Blues have 2 of the top 5 deepest offenses in the whole league. And even though I like Kaprizov tonight, there's good value on the second line. We haven't seen the very best from the guys like Matt Boldy and Kevin Fiala, who were just horses for that team down the stretch of the season. And then on St. Louis's side, I want to tap into them as well. I have Ryan O'Reilly, who's been pretty much a point per game player in the playoffs since their Stanley Cup run in 2019 for St. Louis. And there's an array of skaters on the Blues that you could get in that like mid 4,000 range. You could go Buchnevich, you can go Jordan Kyrou, even cheaper Braden Shen. There's just so much value on the St. Louis Blues. Whether you think they're going to win or not, I think Game 5 was an example of like how Tarasenko was going off against Kaprizov, but it could be any different number of those guys going off against each other. Right? David Perron's had like a 4-point game and a 3-point game in this series. Is a little bit boom or bust, but it doesn't matter if you're looking at a total, right? You're just looking for a high scoring game. You don't care if it's Buchnevich or if it's any of the other guys. So, yeah, I would go with St. Louis and Minnesota for my pick.
All right, last question for you both. We'll go quick with this one because then we got to get Reed in here. He's itching to talk AT&T Byron Nelson and what's going on in the links. Obviously, DraftKings in the lobby, you can build your classic lineups, but you also have the 4 showdown lineups available to you. And whenever I'm building out a showdown lineup, I'm constantly in my head about, am I going to take the risk of putting a goalie in my lineup? Am I that confident in a netminder to where this could really work out or this could backfire terribly? Obviously, is there one goalie, and Pete, maybe it's Vasilevsky for you, you've mentioned him multiple times, is there one goalie that you feel confident putting in a showdown lineup tonight?
Yeah, it would be Vasilevsky. The Lightning haven't lost consecutive games over the past couple of playoffs since their back-to-back championship run began. I think that team has shown in this series resiliency, even when they lose, whether it's a stinker like Game 1 or a really hard-fought, passionate game like Game 5, they can answer back. And I think Vasilevsky will probably allow 2 goals or fewer tonight. We'll see if he could do that, but he's at least on home ice, and tried and true Tampa Bay Lightning are worth the investment, benefit of the doubt in general more times than not. So, yeah, I would say Vasilevsky if anybody, but scoring is up this playoff. Scoring is up in the regular season, right? A lot of overs are hitting and stuff like that. So Don't go too crazy with your goaltenders because more times than not, right, there's like some fluky 5-goal allowed performance. Even Shesterkin's an MVP finalist, and he's absolutely getting lit up this postseason for the Rangers.
So, Anna, why is it my guy, Jeremy Swayman?
I was just about to say, if this game was in Carolina, I would have a clear cut ready to go answer for you and net. But just because it's not in Carolina, it's so tough for me to even think of a goalie who I could have that level of confidence in, given what Pete said. Scoring is crazy. All of these offenses are coming out and just tearing it up right now. We see games going in one team's favor one night. You change it 5 minutes later, all of a sudden you're watching a completely different game. So these offenses are really coming out to play right now. So if I had to choose one, hands tied, it would have to be Vasilevsky, just given his pedigree and how well he's done in prior seasons, just being that strongest component of the Tampa Bay Lightning in terms of helping them reach those back-to-back championships. So if I had to choose one, it would be Vasilevsky. But like Pete said, not the best time to go crazy with their netminders because there's just so much that could happen. You never know.
All right. Well, these are the fantasy heads from the NHL, so we appreciate them hopping on with us as always. Pete Jensen and Adua. You can catch them oftentimes on the Sweat in the mornings for DraftKings programming as well, but on the Slate, hopefully become a more regular occurrence during these Stanley Cup playoffs. Make sure you check out Pete's NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast that he co-hosts as well. Thank you both for hopping on with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Enjoy the games tonight. We are going to keep it here and welcome in the next member of our crew who is a staple on Thursdays. And of course, that is the one, the only Reed T. Fowler, who has been, as he always is this time of week and this time of year, glued to the updates from the links. And in this case, the AT&T Byron Nelson. Reed, how you holding up over there? How the bets, how the lineups, how's everything going?
Good. I mean, I was just enthralled. Pete and Anna have the Stanley Cup on lockdown. So I was just trying to learn as much as I can with hockey, because growing up in Hawaii, we don't have ice out there, Koff.
No, you do not.
We don't have any, unless it's shaved, we don't have any ice.
Yeah, you can get it in your drinks. You do not find it on the ground.
We have one ice rink, and it's nothing near what we have up here, or even north of the border. But so today and this week and every day, every week, I'm glued to the comings and goings of the PGA Championship. And Sebastian Munoz, for what he's doing, and I always forget that he has this in his back pocket because he's done it quite a bit, and he's done it twice already this season in shooting 60. It was unbelievable. 21 putts. Right. So for any person who's averaging, if you 2-putt every single hole, Koff, and that is really good.
I read about that.
That's 36 putts. This guy had 21, right, over 18 holes, essentially a 1-putt every single hole. And when you're hitting it to 5 feet, when you're going 6 under through 4 holes with 2 eagles in 4 holes, you're going to play pretty well. So Sebastian Munoz, he clearly, I liked a lot of guys for first round leader. Once he shot 12 under, it was over. Right. It was the Vince Carter gif. It was over. But there's a lot of guys who've been asked after the round who shot, Mito Pereira shot 8 under, Seamus Powers at 6 under, Paul Malnati's at 8 under, I believe. There's 3 days left. And these guys are saying, hey, look, it's good that the tournament doesn't end on Thursday. And this seems to be an easy course. You need to score in the par 5. So guys who don't score in the par 5s, you will get lapped, because that's what's happening. And I believe there was 12 eagles so far on 18. So if you're not eagling, if you don't at least birdie as a baseline on these par 5s, you're going to get lapped by the field.
So Reed, I built out 5 lineups for this tournament. And it just so happens that one of the, not only did I build out 5 lineups, 5 completely unique. And when I say that, I mean, there's no overlap of players. Okay. I have 30 players across my 5 lineups. And it happens to be that I have Sebastian Munoz and Mito Pereira in the same lineup. And I'm looking at it right now. Munoz with almost 80 fantasy points today with his 12 under day, as you highlighted, the 6 pars, 9 birdies, 2 eagles, the 1 bogey, and he's got the birdie 3+ as well, and just incredible. And of course, Pereira just under 60 fantasy points for his day. So they're both doing phenomenal. Munoz on the DraftKings Sportsbook is the favorite to win this thing. No surprise at -330. I guess, what I wonder though is, it's easy to get caught up in, man, dude shot 60. He is straight fire. But at the same time, He's got 3 rounds to go, and he has a 4-stroke lead isn't you're up by 20 strokes. Like, it's 4 strokes. I don't think that slips away from him on day 2, but it could be a gradual decline if things don't go well for him, obviously. So how do you read what we've seen so far going into, obviously, another day and then the weekend?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Koff. Is that 12 under is fantastic, right? You want that's a great pole position. Shout out Pierce Dietrich for that vernacular. But like, it's you're right. It's not 20 under. 12 under is not 20 under. 4-shot lead is not 20 shot lead. And when you have a course this easy, Koff, when you see guys shoot 67 and it not be not be in the top 5, really, then that this is a course that they can get at. So guys who are shooting right now, who are in that 4 or 5 under range in this afternoon wave, come out tomorrow, they could be the Sebastian Munoz in the morning wave, right? So if they put a 5 under today, and then tomorrow they go out and shoot 8 under, right? They're at 13. And let's say Munoz, the wind picks up, Munoz shoots 3, 4 under, he's at 17. And now you got a ball game. So you're absolutely right. There's 3 days left. This is an easy course. You have to score in the par 5s. If you don't, there's a par 5 out there that's 480 yards. These guys play par 4s that are 500 yards. So if you're not scoring on those holes, then you're dead. You're dead on arrival, right? And that's why guys like Adam Hadwin right now, who are bogeying the par 5s, he's dust because he's at 2 over par when the leader's at 14. And he's a guy that I liked coming into this tournament, right? So
he was popular.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's going to happen. You're going to like guys. He was second in birdies gained over the last 12 rounds. Second, one guy above him was Scotty Scheffler, the best golfer in the world. So you think, man, this guy's making a lot of birdies on difficult courses, should translate to making a ton of birdies on easy course, but it doesn't always correlate, right? So that's them the breaks. That's golf, and that's why it's so much fun, is that you can get Munoz not playing too well. We saw him pop, a few weeks ago. He was playing well at the Players. Remember, he was, I think, either tied for the lead or maybe 1 or 2 back coming into Sunday at TPC Sawgrass, and then the weather and just fatigue probably got to him, and he started off, I think, with like a double or a triple, and then he ended up winning. But this guy can go low. We've seen it before.
So you keep talking, obviously, about how easy this course is, and we've seen some of the robust unders to start things off, and obviously guys are still out on the course as well. In fact, you look at KH Lee, he's 8 under and he's through 12. Like, he's still a guy that can make I don't think he's going to grab a share of the lead, but he could certainly slide himself into second place, all alone, as opposed to the second place tie that he's got going on right now. Where are we at in terms of, projected cut line, at the end of tomorrow, or, at top X number in ties? How does it work with this tourney?
Yeah, top 65 in ties. Last year's cut was 6 under.
So right now that would be -2.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, that's where you got to figure around there if things kind of go as they are right now. Let's say that the leader after round 2 is at 18 under, right? That's feasible. Maybe like 16 is probably it. 15, 16 is probably going to be around where it is. And so if you do the math, then you got to probably shoot around, like, you got to be at 6 under aggregate after 2 days, probably. Now, again, a lot of things can shake up, but that's why, like, JT's at 2 under, Tom Hoagie's at 2 under. There's a big, log of guys jammed at 2 under par. Patrick Rogers, Dylan Fratelli, Taylor Gooch is at 1 over. He was popular. Sam Burns, I believe, is kind of around there as well.
Yeah.
So, there's some guys that could miss out on this tournament. But again, you have to get the guy. You had to get the guy who was going to be hot with his irons, obviously, every week, but especially on bent grass and an easy course on bent grass. You got to get the guy who's going to have that putter week. And right now that's Munoz. But yeah, cut line probably, I would guess, 6 under.
So some notable names that even through one, or worse for that matter. Siwoo Kim is even. Xander Schauffele, obviously, a lot of people are talking about him coming in. He's even. Tommy Fleetwood is even. I'm just scanning the list. I know there are a lot of guys that I'm skipping over here as well. Taylor Gooch has moved to 1 over by the end of his day. Let's see who else here. Adam Hadwin, like you said, is 2 over. Tough, first day for him. So Matt Wolf really disappointed at 4 over. He's still on course. He's got 5 holes left. He's a guy that, was getting some attention going into this thing. So has anyone surprised you in the wrong way? Obviously, there are plenty of pleasant surprises. Any disappointments here for you in particular on round 1?
Yeah, I mean, Adam had one I mentioned. He's at 2 over par. It's like I said, he's through 17. So likely if he's, he could eagle 18, but he'd still be at even. He had to go out and shoot, a 60, what is that? A 66, 65 tomorrow at 7 under par. That's, that takes a lot, right? So, and that's if he eagles 18. If he doesn't, and he
does he think he is Sebastian Munoz?
Right, exactly. If he doesn't, he's at 2 over. That means he's got to shoot 64 off tomorrow, which again isn't like that gets him at 6 under, which I think throwing out a number there. That's a tough feat, even for guys as good as this, and of course as easy as, especially if he's not scoring the par 5s. Like I mentioned, on 12 he bogeyed, right? On the par 5, I think the second par 5 on the front 9 he bogeyed. So that's kind of disappointing. I think Sahith, Sahith Theegala was someone else too that a lot of people liked coming into this. There was maybe some Weiskopf ties to the architect who built the WM Phoenix Open, or who designed that course, also designed this course. There's some of that correlated narrative, and he's I believe at 2 over or 1 over par as well. So, but like this happens, right? Kurt Kitayama's at 1 over par, and this guy has been playing extremely well for the last handful of weeks. That's going to happen. Munoz could have been 2 over par, 3 over par last week, comes here and finds something, or just, finds the groove and can't miss. The hole looks like, it's 5 feet in diameter. So that's just like I said, it's about trying to get those right guys, being on them. And for DFS purposes, maybe you played some narratives like Hideki Matsuyama was in a lot of people's articles as someone to fade.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, I liked him just because of that. And he played well, shot 5 under. He got it up to 6 under, but he looks like someone who could be, moving tomorrow as well. So, that's Adam Hadwin's probably the most disappointing out of all of them, because I thought he would have done a lot better than this.
You alluded to weather before, and of course, in this case, that means wind. How do you expect that to play morning versus afternoon? I mean, are there advantages from a betting perspective, the live betting to take advantage of?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, you're seeing it right now. I mean, outside of, right, KH Lee is the only guy right now out on the course. And then Joaquin Niemann's at 6 under as well. So those 2 players are the only ones, I think, in the top, in like the top 10 who are playing in the afternoon wave.
Mm-hmm.
So, like if you wanted to, right, again, but like, that's why when you're betting, weather and wind doesn't really matter beginning, because they're both playing on each sides of the draw, right? If you start morning, then you go out afternoon the second day, vice versa. So maybe in DFS, absolutely. And if you want, right, Mayo is a big proponent of this, is you want guys that potentially can start on, the back 9, because right now it's like the back 9 is playing a little bit easier. But again, right, where Munoz had that streak of eagle, birdie, eagle was the tail end of the front 9 and the start of the back. So like I don't think there's really a difference in terms of an advantage. But again, you just need the guy who's going to make every single putt. And that's usually the case, but that's the case this week, especially with Munoz.
So is there it doesn't have to be a long shot, but longer than obviously the top 5, let's say, in terms of betting on a winner, or even if you didn't feel so compelled to go with a winner, if you're looking at, a top 5 bet on the DraftKings Sportsbook, who do you like?
Yeah. Seamus Power was someone that I called out pre-tournament. Mm-hmm. When he gets on easier courses, he's played a stretch of tough courses that doesn't really fit his eye. He just tends to play better on easy courses, which makes sense. He's at 6 under, T6 right now. I still think he's in for a good tournament. He putted lights out. That kind of scares me. I think he gained like 4 strokes putting. And when that's the case, you usually go the opposite, because if you don't make those putts and you're not going to shoot 6 under, you're going to shoot more like 2 or 3 if you're lucky. So that's a little bit scary. But again, like I mentioned, Justin Thomas is at 2 under. Like, if Thomas is at 2 under, and look, he's at 2,500 now. He was at, I think, 9 or 10 pre-tournament. He's at 2 under. Remember, at Sawgrass, I believe he shot like 62 or 63 his last win. either in round 2 or 3. So he can go low. And if he's not in the win and he's on this easy course and he finds something towards the end of this round, yeah, plus 2,500, you're getting one of the best players. He was my number one golfer coming into this, one over Scotty Scheffler. And I still think that's the case. He's still missing his putts that he's not making those putts that he usually does, or he can make, and he's at 25. So even though he's 10 back right now, he can have an 8 under round tomorrow. And if he finishes at 3 or 4, that puts him at 12. So I don't mind that one bit.
Reed, we have just a few minutes left. There is something else beyond the world of golf and obviously all the hockey we talked about earlier in the show to get into here. I have young children. You have a child on the way, so you will come to this at some point in time down the road. There are a few things that are worse than like 5-year-old T-ball. It's just awful. It's awful. But I would rather watch a morning of that than fixate on NFL schedule release day. It could not interest me less. I don't understand the obsession on Twitter and all these, especially like the fake leak accounts that people fall for to, oh my God, so-and-so's playing on Thanksgiving, or wow, listen, look at this 4-game road. Like the schedule comes out at like 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever. Like, just let me know when it's out. I'll look at it when it's out. I don't need the little leaks over the course of the day. I do not care. Are you different? Do you get into NFL schedule release day?
No, I don't. I feel the same way. I spoke about this on VSiN last night. They asked me, do you care? And I'm like, not really. It doesn't really move the needle because we already know who the teams are playing.
Yeah. And
right?
where?
Like we already know that, right? Home and away. We already know. Yeah. So I get,
we know the who, we know the where, we just don't know the when.
Yeah. I know it matters towards the end of schedules when you're playing in division, right? And that can shake up a few things, but that's not interesting until we're like a quarter of a way through the season. What I do think is interesting, though, is looking at strength of schedule in terms of regular season wins and looking at it that way in terms of who they're playing, right? I could care less about the schedule release at 8 o'clock, but if you want to rule the news cycle during the off season, the NFL is smart. Make a big hubbub about dates being released and people will fall all over it because after the NFL draft, there's really nothing that the NFL OTAs training, whatever, that's fine. Right. Tom Brady getting $1 trillion, talk about football. Like why even step foot on the football field anymore, buddy?
Yeah, just literally almost $500 million.
Yeah. Just go on the mic. Who cares? Why? What are you trying to prove there, big guy?
Yeah. Don't let anyone touch you ever again.
Combined, you're making more than Aikman and Buck, like combined. Yeah. So what are you doing? But yeah, I could care less.
Yeah, it's let me know when it's out. I'll look and see what the Patriots, what it looks like. And I'll look at it, again, when it exists. I don't need the hype. If Fox could have figured out a way to get Brady involved in some sort of a schedule release announcement for Tampa Bay, sort of a hybrid role to his broadcast and playing career, sure. Tune in, check that out for a hot minute. But yeah,
who's the guy on? I can't remember his name. I'm gonna remember his name. He's the guy in CNN when you're doing the election, and he's telling you all the vote.
Wolf Blitzer?
No, not Blitzer. His khakis rolled up, the glasses. He's one of my favorite.
Oh, Steve
Karnak.
Something like that. Yeah, it is Steve though.
Karnacki or something.
Something like that.
If you had him. And I think he's with NBC right now, right?
Correct. He is with NBC. That is correct. Yeah.
Kornacki, I think is his name.
He's as smart as they come, man.
God, it's just really embarrassing. He's my favorite. If you had him giving me schedule releases and time zones, rolling up the sleeves with the khakis, the rolled up paper, getting all into it, fine. I'm into it. But unless if it's just regular old sports talking heads, no, thank you. I'll just watch more Yellowstone. I'll catch up on Ozark. Almost finished. Don't say a word.
Won't.
And that's what I'll do instead of watching the schedule release.
I look forward to your text when you do finish. We can break it all down. I will say nothing beforehand. I will be respectful of the spoiler process.
You're a good man.
Goodness gracious. All right. Well, we've got to go. You got Madden Sims coming your way over the course of the rest of the evening, only halfway through the Madden Sim day. And of course, tomorrow brings a whole new day of the sweat and Madden Sims and the slate in the evening, where we will talk baseball with, do I have to call him MLB's Steve Buchanan at this point in time? Does he still technically work for DraftKings? Because I only see him doing MLB related programming.
I mean, who knows? He was griping about not having a job when the MLB was on or potentially on strike. So
he doesn't even write for the DK like Playbook or Nation anymore.
No.
His articles are over on MLB.com.
It's big time. I guess he's Hollywood now.
Hot shot. Matt LaMarca will join us as well. Thanks to Undercover Boss Tom T. Pike for always just lending he's like Liam Neeson, lending his unique set of skills to this program. And of course, producer Eamon, who is quite literally in Ireland right now, having himself in It's Always Sunny adventure. For Reed T. Fowler, for Pete Jensen, for Anna Dua, I'm Adam Kaufman. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.